Oh, hi everyone. Feels good to come on and share with you on this very potent portal of this full moon. Before I start sharing, let's take a moment just to ground together into silence through the body. And then my invitation to you will be to listen to my sharing through your inner space, journeying with your somatic experience. In this way, you're always being deeply with yourself. So let yourself arrive somewhere where you can be comfortable, or if you're moving through your day listening, just see if you can pause for a moment if it's possible and just take a moment to bring your awareness to the ground underneath you, through your feet or your bum on a sofa or chair. And just resourcing your connection to the earth, feeling the support of the earth underneath you. She goes everywhere you go. There is no leaving. So just taking a moment to connect viscerally to the earth underneath you. And as you're settling inwards, just allowing any sensory experience that's highlighting itself or compelling you, allowing the sensory and the senses to express. Let the body speak through the vehicle of sensation. Telling its story through the kinesthetic experience. Let the heart speak through feeling, mood, any emotion or ambiance to your inner space. And don't just look at the emotions or the moods. Feel the sensations that come with them, where they're living. What is it like to be that mood or feeling state? And letting the mind express through thinking, let thoughts be thought, images be seen, including any colors, symbols, memories. And including the breath and the breathing, really letting the body breathe how it wants to breathe. Including the sensations that come with breathing, the movements of the body, breathing itself, the sounds of breathing. And as you're welcoming all the things, sometimes like a soup of moving, changing experience, some places more compelling than others. Just see what gets highlighted when I name or presence, silence, or ask you, is there anything that feels calm and still inside or around your body? What is it that's absent of experience, absent of sensory experience? Silence as a word is a placeholder. Just feeling for what gets highlighted when I name silence or calm, or the absolute, what is unmoving, unchanging. And as I'm speaking and journeying today through words, I want you to listen from your inner space. You can listen from that silence if it's available. Can be with the somatic experience together with the silence. Just resting and relaxing. You don't have to hear every word I'm saying. Let this be a journey. And any principles of consciousness that I'm naming, they can, as relevant and compelling, penetrate you as you're receptively sitting with silence as a foundation. The intent of this sharing is to bring awareness to the energetics of this time, and of course, through the lens of my own experience as well, presencing some of the astrological layers at play, and in a hope that this can be a resource for you in this time. The full moon yesterday, and partly the day before, depending where you are in the world, in the sidereal zodiac, was in Scorpio, in the final degrees of Scorpio. The symbol for this place in the sky is the tail end of the scorpion. In Sanskrit, it's called Jeshta. It's the most edgy and challenging dimension of Scorpio, being the deepest depths of Scorpio and the sting of the tail. So it can highlight intensity, but parallel to the intensity is an enormous abundance of spiritual energy, transformational energy, making it actually a very powerful placement for manifestation. Embedded within Jeshta, a key to manifesting. And one of the ways I'm looking at that key at the moment is the power of integrating the psyche wherever we're challenged the most, wherever intensity rests for us, be it a core wound, a betrayal, a hurt, or an area of your life where you feel disempowered, or where you feel there's room for you to grow into your potency and your capacity to consciously create yourself in that aspect of your own constellation. And it's through the meeting of intensity and challenge, the deepest watery depths that are the hardest to choose to move into, can feel like drowning, chaotic. Obviously, with the full moon, there's like an intensification, an amplification of feeling. The deeper emotional experience becomes illuminated. Dissonances become more apparent. And there can be this edginess, it's the tail of the scorpion, so it can feel sharp and shocking, like being stung. And it's through an integration of wherever that sting strikes the deepest for us. That's really where our manifestory power is sitting. The last couple of weeks for me was a visitation of the theme of rejection that I have had a journey with, feels like forever, healing it from many angles and still residuals of the experience kind of lingering. And I found myself having a very powerful opportunity to shed the final remnants of rejection through a showing up within a scenario in a new way. In fact, the fulfillment of healing required right action and moving in a way that was unrejecting of myself, even if it was uncomfortable or challenging. And it took time for me to work my way into the delivery of myself in a new way. And I'm really delighting in the empowerment that this movement from a state of rejection into a delivery of myself into the world, a delivery of my potency into the world within a difficult situation. And as I was sitting last night with the full moon, it struck me how much energy has freed up, energy that can now be used for manifestation, energy that had been tied into old paradigms of relating. It's like the final threads that needed cutting. And a key aspect of the healing for me was sitting with the phenomena of rejection and all that came with that in the scenario at hand, and sitting at the source of all things. The inquiry, what is the source of this experience or an experience that you're having, the sensation that you're feeling right now, or a mood that you're in, or a scenario that's playing out. We can be deeply intimate with the nature of that experience through the somatic gestalt experience, allowing and letting it have its say. And when there's readiness, the question, what is the source of this experience? When we ask that question, it's not about finding the answer. The question is like sewing an ingredient into the space and igniting a journey. And the journey is represented by what subtle responses get highlighted in the internal spaces. When you ask that question in relationship to something you're experiencing, you then let the question go and just rest into the unfolding. with silence as your backdrop or calm, whatever that foundation of is for you. And just resting into what arises. And the responses are going to be pre-sensorial. So you have to attune to the subtlety of what gets highlighted. Letting go of finding an answer, and letting things be organized. Consciousness will organize itself and align to the inquiry at hand when we ground or have silence or the absolute as a foundation for the journey. So, one of the invitations of the next cycle in this period is not only an invitation to embrace our watery depths and wherever intensity lies for us, and allow that intensity to be like a vehicle for transformation that can allow us to gain capacity to consciously create the self and to manifest through the essentialization of the unintegrated parts of ourselves. There are other astrological influences right now, namely a conjunction, that kind of a coalescing in the sky of Mars and Ketu, the south node of the moon in Leo. This brings in the fire element because Mars is considered, of course, a fiery planet, and Ketu, even though Ketu is not a planet, it's a place in the sky. Because of the cutting nature of Ketu, it is also considered a fiery place in the sky. So the coming together of Mars and Ketu in Leo, which is a fire sign, gives rise to an intensity of fire, and a fire that has the potential to be very cutting and destructive in a way that is intended to force anything that is refusing to return or unify with the source of itself and with the void, to return to the void. So it's going to be potentially a challenging influence for people. And it is possible we'll see in the collective some big events that will reflect that level of intensity and that collective process of returning to the void through destruction, be it big earth movements and changes. I've heard already of a prophecy of a big plate shift, tectonic plate movements happening off the coast of Japan. Etna is bubbling away across the sea from me in Sicily. We can see through the vehicle of war the continuity of violence, and it may be there'll be an increased level of violence or aggression. You know, when something isn't ready to surrender to the void, it burns, and that is where anger can alight. And that anger is important. It can be defensive, and it needs to have its say. And so it's really important that we include in this period a conscious inclusion of our relationship with anger. Anger can also give rise to frustration, anxiety, nervousness, like rajasic emotional qualities. And really allowing there to be an essentializing process through a deep inclusion of the phenomena of rage and anger so that we can come into an aware relationship with the phenomena of anger. And there can be a movement from anger into ferocity. And the more unified or disappeared we are into the experience of ferocity, the cleaner the delivery of that force of nature as destructiveness. So when there's separation or when there's any gaps between that delivery of that movement into the void, the expression of what is the force of nature and what we are, that can look like saying something to someone that is hurt, is received as devastating in a way that is harsh or exaggerated or moving in a way that is aggressive. So the more disappeared we are into a phenomena such as anger, the cleaner the delivery, the more it is being fueled and driven through that communion with the source and origin of the phenomena. The force of nature as destruction can be cleanly delivered and expressed through you as an aspect of your being in harmony with the whole, like serving a purpose, an intent. And if we recognize that that intent is one of returning to the void and to the source of all things, then it makes the journey of being either in that exploration and recognizing those elements within yourself or being on the receiving end of destructiveness. It allows you to recognize, this is my opportunity. This is my moment to return to the source of all things and to bring that source centering into what is happening. So there can be a clean, truthful delivery of this moment. And this is a way to bring consciousness to the dangers of fire because too much fire, fire in excess is dangerous. You know, you can't even touch fire. I mean, with water, you can touch water, but with fire, you can't even touch it, you know. So, um, there are ways in which the manifest gross elemental level is going to play this theme out through the play of elements. And the more aligned you are to these movements in these primal movements, the greater your manifestory power will be within what is occurring, and your way of grace will appear more effortlessly, and that can lead to moving in a safe way for you and your family and loved ones. It can mean many things. And of course, there's a huge amount of creative potential that's buried and hidden within this time because a cycle is set by the full moon. So we've just had this full moon in Scorpio, and Jeshta is really a place of manifestation. It's like manifestatory power. And so, you know, it's really like sitting with your finger on the pulse of the potential within a seed for the seed to grow. And if you consider that source point and be there, you're sitting with your finger on the pulse of creation before creation has even like happened. And so there's a lot of power in this cycle. Of course, there'll be another full moon in a month's time, and then the flavor, but the influences of the Mars and Ketu conjunction will continue right up until the end of July. I think that it kind of the crescendo of their conjoining happens then, and then they'll start to move apart. I'm also recognizing a theme that feels very apparent to me around justice. And I'm feeling it very strongly within the collective field. There are a lot of things playing out right now in the world that feel so brutally unjust. And of course, the experience of what justice would be is relative to the experiencer. But there is this theme as a collective um, quality. And so I have been contemplating around the direct experience of justice. Like justice to me is a delivery of love, like of love. Like justice is love, but there is a manifestatory power. Like it has to be manifest. It's not just an idea. Justice isn't justice unless something is happening that delivers the justice into the world in a manifested way. So I've been contemplating that, particularly in the collective, in relationship to some world events that um, highlight so strongly in my consciousness and are dear to my heart, and feeling into the collective longing for justice. So longing is a really like desire and longing. Of course, whenever we're talking about power of manifestation, we have to come into a deep relationship with longing, be it collective or individual, because the longing or the desiring is really like the fuel, like the pulse that kind of gives um that intent initiates into existing, you know, like there has to be a desire, there has to be a longing, you know, otherwise nothing comes into being. It's really the engine at an essential level, you know, true desire, like the true heart's desire is at the essential level like a revelation of an aspect of creation that is fundamental to the mechanisms of conscious creation, like the science of conscious creation. So coming into an intimate and embodied experience of desiring, longing is really key to this cycle. And if you're feeling, like really good right now and there's nothing that you're needing or longing for, then feel into the collective. I mean, it is very powerful to see the difference between an individual personal journey of growth and a collective journey of growth. And what is the whole wanting for itself? It's a really beautiful question. It's really pointing us to divine will. So I just really wanted to present some of the things that have felt really alive for me. It does feel like an incredibly rich time. Um, and there has been a lot of very beautiful influences at play. We've had Venus in Pisces, where she's exalted, and that gives way to a lot of bliss and heights of delighting. And Jupiter's just moved into Gemini, so that really allows intellect and intelligence to take the stage. And that's definitely bringing to the forefront the question of AI and artificial intelligence. And so, if that is a theme that is dear to your heart and working out your relationship with artificial intelligence, now is the time to do that, to apply everything I've just shared. What needs to go back to the void? What is true? What happens when there is a complete return to the source of myself in the face of a scenario or an object or a thing or something like AI? So really seeking to become the embodiment of truth through a deep internal process. So that is my sharing of this time, and my invitation to myself and to all of us is to ride the waves of intensity with grace through applying our tools and our resources. And if you work with me in Thessa, you have many tools and resources to navigate your inner space. And maybe many of you haven't worked with us and you have other tools, and whatever's working for you is your beloved ally. And of course, if you would like to learn how Lisa and I teach and navigate our inner space and what we're sharing with others as a pathway for coming home to the origin and the source of ourselves, and tending to an embodiment process, and thus in a movement towards the conscious creation of the self, then I'm always here and available, and there are many ways to journey with us. And I have a 6-week series of meditations that I'm offering exactly on everything I've just shared, designed to ride out the next 6 weeks, driven by initially this Scorpio full moon, and then leading into the next lunar cycle. So taking us to the end of July. And I've shared in the writing for this transmission, the invite, and you can message me if you're interested and if it's appropriate for you to join. And if you're unsure, you can ask me. And there will be limited places, so just 6 people can join. This way, everyone has time to share, and I can give feedback and be really attuned to everyone's process. It can be a deep level of holding. Thank you for journeying with me today. Wish you all a blessed day or evening wherever you are in the world, and feel free to comment anything you're noticing that I haven't named, anything that wants presencing. Anything I've named that you don't understand, I will very happily elaborate either in the comments or with another transmission. And I wish you all a beautiful day, evening. Much love. And thank you for being here. It's definitely a sacred space for me to share with you all. And it touches me deeply to know who's listening. So please like and comment so I know you're there. All right. Much love to you all.